Continuing on to part 4. Toussaint's emotion and Lequen's trembling both bear the mark of sincerity. I have recalled them in my reading since it is in books that we enjoy the surprise of discovering a nest. Let us pursue our search for nests in literature. The following is an example in which the author sets the domiciliary value of the nest one tone higher. It is taken from the journals of Henry David Thoreau, March 17, 1858. Here, the entire tree, for the bird, is the vestibule of the nest. Already, a tree that has the honor of sheltering a nest participates in its mystery. For a bird, a tree is already a refuge. Thoreau tells of a green woodpecker that took an entire tree for its home. He compares this taking possession with the joy of a family that returns to live in a house it had long since abandoned. It is as when a family, your neighbors, return to an empty house after a long absence, and you hear the cheerful hum of voices and the laughter of children, and see the smoke from the kitchen fire. The doors are thrown open, and children go screaming through the hall. So the flicker dashes through the aisles of the grove, throws up a window here, and cackles out it, and then there, airing the house. It makes its voice ring upstairs and downstairs, and so, as it were, fits it for its habitation in ours, and takes possession. In this passage, Thoreau gives an expanded version of both nest and house. We are struck, too, by the fact that the text comes alive in both directions of the metaphor. The happy household is a flourishing nest. The woodpecker's confidence in the shelter of the tree in which it has hidden its nest represents taking possession of a home. Here we leave well behind the implications of comparisons and allegories. A reasonable critic will no doubt consider that this woodpecker proprietor who appears at the window of the tree and sings on its balcony is an exaggeration. But a poetic spirit will be grateful to Thoreau for giving it, with this nest that has the dimensions of a tree, a fullness of image. A tree becomes a nest the moment a great dreamer hides in it. In his Mémoires d'Outre-Tombe, Chateaubriand makes the following confidential note. I had set up my headquarters, like a nest, in one of these willows, and there, isolated between heaven and earth, I spent hours among the warblers. And the fact is that in a garden, we grow more attached to a tree inhabited by birds. However mysterious and invisible among the leaves the green-garbled woodpecker may be at times, he nevertheless becomes familiar to us. For a woodpecker is not a silent dweller. It is not when he sings, however, that we think of him, but when he works. Up and down the tree trunk, his beak pecks the wood with resounding taps. And although he frequently disappears, we still hear him. He is a garden worker. And so the woodpecker enters into my sound world, and I make a salutary image of him for my own use. In my Paris apartment, when a neighbor drives nails into the wall at an undue hour, I naturalize the noise by imagining that I am in my house in Dijon, where I have a garden. And finding everything I hear quite natural, I say to myself, that's my woodpecker at work in the acacia tree. This is my method for obtaining calm when things disturb me. Good method. A nest, like any other image of rest and quiet, is immediately associated with the image of a simple house. When we pass from the image of a nest to the image of a house, and vice versa, it can only be in an atmosphere of simplicity. Van Gogh, who painted numerous nests, as well as numerous peasant cottages, wrote to his brother, "The cottage, with its thatched roof, made me think of a wren's nest." For a painter, it is probably twice as interesting if, painting a nest, he dreams of a cottage, and while painting a cottage, he dreams of a nest. It is as though one dreamed twice, in two registers, when one dreams of an image cluster such as this. For the simplest image is doubled. It is itself and something else than itself. Van Gogh's thatched cottages are overladen with thatch. Thick, coarsely plaited straw emphasizes the will to provide shelter by extending well beyond the walls. Indeed, in this instance, among all the shelter virtues, the roof is the dominant evidence. Under the roof's coverings, the walls are of earth and stone. The openings are low. A thatched cottage is set on the ground like a nest in a field. And a wren's nest is a thatched cottage because it is a covered, round nest. I'm going to say it one more time because I stumbled. And a wren's nest is a thatched cottage because it is a covered, round nest. The Abbe Vincelot has described it as follows. The wren builds its nest in the form of a very round ball, in the bottom of which it makes a small hole to let the water out. Usually this hole is hidden beneath a branch, and I have often examined a nest from every angle before noticing this opening. It also serves as entrance for the female bird. By living Van Gogh's nest cottage and its obvious liaison, the words suddenly seem to jest. I like to tell myself that a little king lives in that cottage. Here is certainly a fairy tale image, an image that suggests any number of tales. A nest house is never young. Indeed, speaking as a pendant, we might say that it is the natural habit of the function of inhabiting. For not only do we come back to it, but we dream of coming back to it, the way a bird comes back to its nest or a lamb to the fold. This sign of return marks an infinite number of daydreams, for the reason that human returning takes place in the great rhythm of human life. A rhythm that reaches back across the years and through the dream combats all absence. An intimate component of faithful loyalty reacts upon the related images of nest and house. I'm going to read the last two sentences again. This sign of return marks an infinite number of daydreams, for the reason that human returning takes place in the great rhythm of human life, a rhythm that reaches back across the years and through the dream combats all absence. I love that. An intimate component of faithful loyalty reacts upon the related images of nest and house. In this domain, everything takes place simply and delicately. The soul is so sensitive to these simple images that it hears all the resonances in a harmonic reading. Reading on the conceptual level, on the other hand, would be insipid and cold. It would be purely linear. For here we are asked to understand the images one after the other. And in this domain of the nest image, the lines are so simple that one is surprised at the poet's delight in them. But simplicity brings forgetfulness, and suddenly we feel grateful toward the poet who has the talent to renew it with such rare felicity. No phenomenologist could help reacting to this renewal of such a simple image. We are deeply moved when we read Jean Colbert's simple poem entitled Le Nid tiède, the warm nest. This poem becomes all the more meaningful when one considers that it appeared in a rather austere volume on the theme of the desert. Le nid tiède et calme, où chantaient les oiseaux, rappelle les chansons, les charmants, les sueurs pures de la vieille maison. Sorry. The warm, calm nest in which a bird sings recalls the songs, the charms, the pure threshold of my old home. And here the threshold is a hospitable threshold, one that does not intimidate us by its majesty. The two images, the calm nest and the old home, weave the sturdy web of intimacy on the dream loom. The two images, the calm nest and the old home, weave the sturdy web of intimacy on the dream loom. The images are all simple ones, with no attempt at picturesqueness. The poet rightly thought that at the mention of a nest, a bird's song, and the charms that take us back to the old home, to the first home, a sort of musical chord would sound in the soul of the reader. But in order to make so gentle a comparison between house and nest, one must have lost the house that stood for happiness. So there is also an alas in this song of tenderness. If we return to the old home as to a nest, it is because memories are dreams, because the home of other days has become a great image of lost intimacy. Okay. Hope you're doing well.